Welcome to Convince Me in 15 Minutes, where we give our guests 15 minutes to convince us about timely topics in the financial services industry. Before we begin, please subscribe below. The Convince Me in 15 Minutes podcast will introduce you to new concepts, theories, philosophies, and practices in the financial services industry. Your guides are Luke Tawas and Keith Thompson. We'll follow up the initial presentation with questions. So again, subscribe below and we'll introduce our guest speaker.
So I am Leslie Venetz. I'm the founder of the Sales-Led Go-to-Market Agency, and I am here today to convince y'all that outbound selling is the fastest and the best path to growth and revenue for most organizations. So I'm going to teach you what my clients spend a bunch of money to learn with me, which is how to write amazing outbound messages that get replies, and you can take the thinking that I'm going to run you through today and you can apply it to messages on social, you can apply it to emails, you can apply it to the scripts you might use for cold calls. So it's much more about the mindset and the approach than like a specific template or a specific script. So I'm going to walk you through 3 ideas today that sort of create layers to get you to a point where you are leading with outbound sales motions that get replies, that get revenue. The first one is relevance. This is about having a conversation with your prospects. So you're not talking at people in your messaging, you're creating conversations with them. The second is segmentation. So this is how to, instead of taking a boil the ocean approach and trying to create messaging that appeals to everybody, building enough segmentation that you are really saying something that matters to those pockets of your ICP. And then the third one is bringing it all together with an earn the right approach, which is how you make sure that your outbound selling matters to the person receiving it. So let me walk you through each of those in a bit more detail. So the first element is relevance. This is talking with your prospect instead of at them. And let's be honest, everybody probably has at least one email in their inbox right now where the seller doesn't ask any questions. Maybe what they've done is just read you the news, those messages that are like, "Hi, Keith, I see you're the title at company." And we really can't just show up and tell our prospects something that they already know and expect them to care about it. What you're also going to see in those messages, and I encourage y'all, do a quick audit of the messages you're sending, even if it's not cold outbound, even if it's not for sales. I think this is an interesting audit to see how much I, we, and our language is being used. So you hear a lot of folks say, outbound doesn't work for me, or my clients don't respond to outbound sales. And it's not that it doesn't work. It's that you're bad at it. And if you look at those messages, they read like, "Hi, Keith, I'm Leslie Venetz. I'm your account executive at this company. We do our product." And I'm going to get into this a little bit more with earn the right, but the gist is you have not done anything to earn the right to expect the recipient of that message to care about you or your company or your product at this point. So when we think about relevance, when we think about how to drive messaging, outbound messaging that delivers growth, that delivers revenue, you have to make it relevant and valuable to your prospect by talking about what matters to them, the topics, the trends, the challenges, the goals that matter to them. Okay, number 2 is segmentation. So you might be thinking, sure, relevance would be great. How the heck do I create relevant messaging for the 2,000 people in my territory? First things first, you don't want to contact 2,000 people. You don't need to contact 2,000 people. Often when I start engagements with clients, I'll ask them how many accounts they need to close to hit their revenue goals. And it's usually like 20 or 100 or, somewhere in between. It certainly isn't 2,000. So instead of trying to contact 2,000 people at once, we're going to be a bit more strategic about how we create lists of accounts to reach out to. So this is segmentation. So if you are a business owner, you might not have an ideal customer profile nailed down yet, but it's just thinking about not everybody that can buy your product, but who would most benefit from buying your product. Like who is most likely to renew or leave you testimonials or refer other people? Who's most likely to buy at a fair price point without a ton of negotiation? And who's most likely to buy fastest, right? So you're just thinking about what is the fastest path to revenue where there's mutual benefit. That's your ICP. And what I'm asking you to do is take that ICP and build in some additional layers. In this slide, I suggest 4 to 5 layers. So let me give you an example. Often people think that they're speaking directly to a specific persona, and the email will say something like, "We help finance executives in the sales space." That really doesn't mean anything, right? For me, somebody that audits cold copy, that's a telltale sign that it's a generic message and it actually is not meant for me at all. But you can make a small pivot in your language, and instead of saying finance executives, say CFOs or directors of financial accounting. Make it specific, because the types of decisions and the types of copy that are applicable to a CFO, they're different than what's applicable to a director. And instead of saying the sales space, specifically say B2B SaaS for small to medium-sized businesses, right? So you're building in some of that layer of specificity that allows you to personalize your messages without having to say, "Hey, Luke, looked like swimming with the dolphins was really fun when you went to Cabo in 2017. Instead, you can personalize in a way that is messaging that is relevant to them. Okay, now we're going to bring it all together with the third concept, which is earn the right. This is my sales methodology. And by using the concepts of relevance, segmentation, and earn the right, I promise you that for most B2B businesses, outbound selling is the fastest path to growth and revenue. Earn the right is about making your outreach really matter to them, which is the theme of this entire discussion. And what I would ask you to do is challenge yourself to answer the question before you pick up the phone or send that message on LinkedIn or send that email. Ask yourself the question, what have I done to earn the right to make this ask of my prospect? And the ask might just be the time it takes to read an email, or their attention to open up a case study you sent. Maybe it's bigger than that. Maybe you're asking them for a meeting. What have you done to earn the right to make that ask of them? And if you don't have a clear answer where you've said something relevant, you've said something valuable, maybe you have led with insight, or maybe you've made a deposit, meaning you've shared a resource that is valuable to them, it's time to go back to the drawing board, because you've not yet crafted messaging meant for that specific segment of your persona that you're confident is relevant and valuable to them, that you're confident has earned the right to their time and attention. But if you stack relevance, segmentation, and this earn the right mindset, you will speed to revenue with outbound selling.
Can you maybe provide a little bit more detail on earning the right? I mean, both Keith and I are 25 plus years in sales. We have a lot of relationships where I know the advisors that we deal with very well, but still earning the right is kind of a pretty powerful word, set of words.
Yeah. Okay. I have so many ideas. So everybody's going to be able to find at least one idea that would apply to like where their prospects live and the type of selling they like doing. Some of my favorites, as somebody who's had a career in C-suite enterprise selling, are to make deposits. And so that might be sharing a report that your company recently produced and then pulling out something pertinent to the prospect. So you're not sending them a 50-page report and then saying, oh, I hope you get the value I'm trying to deliver. You send the report and you say, hey, Luke, make sure you take a look at page 12. Based on your recent earnings report, I think those insights are going to be particularly valuable to you. Right? So you're sharing something of value to them, something that you're confident is relevant, and you're making it easy for them to get that value. Some other things that are maybe a little bit less involved than that. A campaign I ran recently, I made my own little infographic. Took me like 10 minutes to make in Canva, and it was just based on my expertise. Hey, I talk to hundreds of sales leaders every year. Here are 3 trends I'm seeing surface in those conversations. I put it in an infographic. I shared that. It doesn't even have to be in an infographic. You could just share it as an insight. Hey, Keith, I talked to 132 sales leaders this year. Here's one thing that almost all of them said as a priority, and I thought that you'd want to know. That's valuable. That's giving them something that they wouldn't have access to without me. Maybe it's even lower touch than that. Maybe they create content on LinkedIn. So maybe it's just setting a reminder once a week to go leave a comment on their content and engage and support them that way. So it's not a specific activity so much as like, how can you, like, before you try to make a withdrawal, and that withdrawal is that ask for them to open the email, attend your event, book in a discovery meeting, whatever it is. Before you make that withdrawal, what can you do to make some deposits in the bank first?
I think Luke and I, over the past 25, 30 years in our careers, we've always prided ourselves on kind of being educators rather than salespeople. And I think our clients have appreciated that, in that they're looking to us for almost our opinion on what their business is or what the markets are. And at some point in time, our opinion leads to us having a solution for them also. But you said something earlier too that it harkened back to the beginning of my career when I always said I didn't know money, marry money, or come from money. So I had to ask other people for theirs, which was I was trying to actually eliminate them rather than them eliminating me. I didn't want to talk to people who didn't have the capacity. I didn't have the capacity to help. I mean, if I found somebody who had no money, I wasn't going to be able to help them as a financial advisor at that point in time. Same thing with our career right now. In our capacity, we tend to deal with corner officer advisors from big financial institutions, and we can deal with them because they have the money, and we're more inclined to be able to have something that will benefit them, and we'll also have areas of expertise that might be helpful to them. The question that I have for you is, if you don't know that person, how do you make these deposits? Is it research reports just where you pull something out? Is it because they're getting 10 billion emails a day? So even if you have something good and you have it in a tidbit, it's very difficult to get people to look at things like that.
It is. So first off, I love the approach that you described, which is that trusted advisor approach. So few people are taking the time to lead with a trusted advisor approach. It's a bit of a slower burn, right? Because we're building trust and that takes time, but play the long game, because that type of approach will ultimately lead to more conversations, more referrals, more revenue. So I think the trusted advisor approach is one of those plays. I think there's a couple other elements. One is people stop reaching out way too early. They'll send 1 or 2 emails and the person doesn't reply and they just stop. That's one of the biggest failings. It's interesting because there's a bit of a debate happening on LinkedIn right now about an email that just is a reply and it just says the word thoughts ? And people are fighting about whether or not it's a good email. And what I think they're missing, Keith, is not whether thoughts is a good email or not, but the fact that the reason it works is because it's simply one more email. Right?
Well, actually, Leslie, today I got an email that almost stopped me in my tracks, and it was from somebody who says, well, I guess social media isn't relevant to your organization. And that was all the email said. And it made me reread the email that this person sent me 2 weeks ago, which was a cold email about something that I guess glanced over or deleted quickly. So I do think those short emails can sometimes get people to take a second look.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have gone with that one. That kind of sounds a little bit rude. But it's also a bit of a pattern interrupt that it did make you like do a double take. But like simply not giving up so early is key. Like often people are like get to the point where they're writing pretty good copy, but then they do maybe 2 emails and 1 phone call and they give up, and the data is still clear that it takes 8 to 12 touches to get somebody to reply to us. So like, don't give up, put in the work. And like, I think your question about research, like where do you figure out what is relevant? My take on this, Keith, is that it is often less important to hyper-personalize. Hyper-personalize means like listen to your podcast and that's why I'm reaching out, or like saw you speak at this event and that's why I'm reaching out. It is often less important to lead with those bits of hyper-personalization and more important to spend that time developing a deep understanding of what is happening in the world that person lives in. What are the trends? What's happening with their customers? What's happening generally with the market that impacts them? What are the big industry trends? And that's going to help you create that trusted advisor role or that trusted advisor persona a lot easier, because you're not trying to find like one nugget to start the conversation with. You're focused much more on just like sharing those insights.
Yeah, I think your concept of making deposits into the bank before you even remotely ask for a withdrawal is a powerful one. And what I will say is, if you are kind of a veteran in whatever career you're in, you do have unique insights that are probably meaningful to your audience. And I think sometimes just sharing with your audience, hey, I have other advisors or other consultants that are just like you. This is what I'm finding their largest concerns are. Is that the same thing with you? I guess trying to probe for maybe what their pain points are, but by also sharing the fact that you've had an experience that I'm seeing my other advisors have these same concerns. Is that kind of a technique, or is that not worthwhile?
No, that's great. And if you layer that type of messaging with segmentation, it gets even more powerful, because it's not saying other advisors. It's like, here's what other advisors who are in single family offices in the Northeast, or whatever those layers are that make sense for you. But it's like, here's what 10 MFOs that manage over $1 billion are telling me their top priority is for this year. What's your take on that? Because you're leading both with insight and curiosity. And that curiosity is going to be appealing because they're like, oh, what does this person know? And it doesn't feel like they're trying to sell me something. It feels like they're open to having a dialogue with me.
Yeah, but you still have to have something to back that up. It's almost like an attorney that asks a question that they don't know what the answer is going to be. You don't ever want that. You don't want to just throw out some bomb that they send something back to you and you're like, oh, I really have no idea. So I would imagine this is a process where you need to make sure you've got enough backfill on whatever it is that you're prompting them on.
For sure. So for folks like you who have years and years of experience, you can fall back on your experience. This is what I see in my conversations or in my experience, because you have that expertise. But you never want to like lie or make things up, just so that we're super clear on that. But for folks that are maybe newer, two ideas. One, like, you don't need to have 30 years of expertise to be able to share a relevant insight. particularly if you're doing outbound sales, because you might not be having discovery calls with prospects or like customer calls, but you're probably, particularly if you're cold calling, still talking to maybe 10 to 15 people a week. So there's still going to be insights that you can glean from that. Like I had conversations with 15 CHROs last week. Here's one thing that 80% of them told me. Like that's still valuable. And I think it's also important to remember, Keith, that people are frazzled. Like we're all just like kind of a little bit frazzled and a little bit overwhelmed. So maybe you don't want to take an expert-led insight approach. Instead, read a report by McKinsey that deep dives the industry that you're in, and then shoot over a 1 to 2 sentence summary. Hey, Keith, I just read this 40-page report so you don't have to. Here are the 2 insights I found most compelling. What do you think about those?
And Leslie, do you work with clients specifically on sending emails, or I imagine you're also like with scripts and outbound phone calls and making introductions and then also possibly leaving voicemails. Is that right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. The whole outbound process. And if all you're doing is sending emails, you're never going to win, because taking a 1-channel approach is just, it's not it. I advocate for a 3-channel approach, which is usually email, phone, and social, but can also be creative, like maybe a direct mail piece or event-led piece. But yes, I work with clients to do the processes as well as the copy, and then to train their reps on both the skill sets and the mindset to enable them to execute against those new processes that we've created.
The only thing I would ask of you, is there anything that you'd like to leave in terms of people being able to contact you or reach out to you if they'd like to pursue your services?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to find me. So it's just at my name, at Leslie Venetz. I'm also on most social media at B2B Sales Coach. And if folks prefer video, I have a tidy little following on TikTok at Sales Tips Talk. So you can certainly find me there, but LinkedIn is my primary. I post there every day. And I have been doing that for over 1,000 days.
Wonderful.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Leslie. We can't thank you enough for your time. And it was very enjoyable having you here today.
Thank you, gents. And thanks everybody for listening.
Take care. Have a wonderful day.